Hi, I'm Eric.
And I'm Laura. We're a couple who stepped away from the default version of success after questioning the traditional path and realizing the life we were building looked right on paper but didn't feel the way we thought it would.
Join us for honest conversations, grounded perspective, real life experiences, and a refreshing take on what it means to live life on your own terms.
Is it just me, or does it feel so good to be back in the studio recording again?
It does feel really good. I mean, studio is a very loose term around here, but our living room and dining room and, our RV.
Can you let me live my dream? For now,
Yes.
For now, this has to be my dream studio.
Yes, it is. It is the studio space. We do transform it specifically for podcasting.
Yes. But no, I'm so excited to be sitting across the table from you, diving into some topics that really just mean so much to me, are topics that honestly I could probably talk about for days on end.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have that good conversation. I enjoy having conversations with you.
So it's like any other day, but now we have podcast mics and headphones on.
Yeah, I mean,
sitting across from each other, having conversations about all these things.
And I don't
just
know,
recording ourselves.
Just letting people have a glimpse into what our lives look like.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
And then I'm looking out the window and there's RVs rolling through because it's that time of day. But it's all right.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm elated. I'm very excited.
I know it does feel really good to get back in the saddle and get back on this train and let's do this, right?
100%. So with that being said, there's a moment that I think a lot of people experience but don't always talk about. It's when you look at your life on paper. It's when you look at your life and on paper, everything looks right, but something just feels off. Like you did everything you were supposed to do, you followed the path, and somehow you still ended up questioning, why doesn't this feel better than it does?
Yeah, it's a really weird place to be in because you're not miserable, you're not in a crisis, and nothing's actually wrong, which almost makes it harder to explain because it feels ungrateful to even question that.
Oh gosh, 100%.
Right?
And this is something we both experienced in our own way over the years. I mean, for me, this tracks back to, at least 2019, if not the few years leading up to that. I mean, looking back on that time in my life, I feel like I was going through the motions daily. And you don't always realize it when you're in that moment, but I think when you do have that realization, it does not feel good. To just feel like every day is almost like Groundhog's Day.
Yep.
And for me specifically, I really never found my place in the corporate world. And so I decided to start my own business. Not something that I sought out to do, but it just kind of aligned that was the next logical step for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I quickly realized that being a business owner, there are obviously amazing benefits to it. And I think it really depends on like where you are in the business space. For me, I was working in person with clients. And I quickly realized that was an even quicker path to burnout than any corporate job I'd ever had. There was only me.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was only so much of me to go around. And, I know you recognized the burnout in me, I think before I even recognized it in myself.
Mm-hmm.
But once I did, I wanted change. I just had no idea what that looked like. And like many, I thought the grass would be greener somewhere else. I know. It's such a I say that and I'm like, did I really just say that? I kind of cringe, but it's almost like you have to have that experience. Like that by no means was my first time where I thought the grass would be greener.
Right.
But it's just like to always think, well, it's got to be greener somewhere else. It's like eventually you kind of have to, face the reality that it might not be as you think it will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think so. You had mentioned that you were just going through the motions, and I think that, I mean, that really hits the nail on the head for me too. I was just, going to work every day, and sheesh, 2019, man, what a wild year that was.
Such a wild year for us.
But like before that, I was in a place where, I was just, I hit that point in my, I don't want to say career, because I think at that point it was still a job. So I hit that point in that job where, you know, I wasn't going to go any further. And not for, and maybe it was for a lack of trying. Like I knew that, I knew that kind of going into there, because that's just what the job entailed.
I think a lot of us can relate to that, though. I know I certainly can. I mean, I felt that way at my first job right out of college, as well as my second.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, much like you at that time in your life, like I always worked for smaller companies.
Yeah.
So there was not the, plethora of different positions, nor the opportunity for growth that you would likely find at a larger company.
Right, exactly. And for me at the time, like the only other option aside from sticking in my whatever role it was like a tech support style job. The only other option was to move over into a sales position where I would have to call companies and say, "Hey, do you want to buy this software?" Um, if anyone knows me, I mean, I am not a salesperson. Like I, at that time especially, like I think I would have been not very good at it.
I think we're all capable of sales if we're
Mhm.
passionate about what we're selling.
Yeah. So
If we truly believe in our core, the power of whatever that is, product or service,
right.
and how that can positively benefit someone's life, I think we can all sell.
Oh yeah. And
But when you
I
don't,
agree.
but when you don't have that,
Exactly.
it's really hard to do.
And that's what I was just getting at is I I knew the product in and out, and I knew the benefits of it, but it just wasn't like, um, there was just no fire. Like oh yeah, this is amazing. Like everyone needs to have this. I'm like, yeah, it's just a job. I hit that ceiling. I'm like, all right, so that's when I was like looking, and it was always around that 2.5 year mark for me. At each job I had, it was like that 2.5 year mark. I'm like, all right, I I've exhausted everything. Let's go on. And again, you'd mentioned it earlier. The grass is greener on the other side. Nah, not really, but you think it is.
You
So
hope it is.
you hope it is. Yeah, you really hope it is.
You find a
And
lot of hope in that grass, let me tell you.
exactly. And that's what I was going through. And 2019 was that pivotal year. It was, you know, I thought we had found that greener grass. And
So did I. So did I. So, kind of to recap on what life looked like at that time, it was honestly just like it was going through the motions. It was like eat, sleep, work, repeat, make it to the weekend, cram as much as you possibly could into those 48 hours of the weekend, and then get right back to that same routine on
right.
Monday. And I don't know about you, but that's not a life. Like that's just not a way to live.
It's just a few boxes to check.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, it kind of just like now that I am fully processing that and we're having this conversation, like to me, that's just like getting by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that.
You got to pass the time somehow.
Yeah,
So like,
exactly. Right.
But the disconnect, I know for me, the disconnect again really showed up when I finally realized that I was just so burnt out in business. And I knew that where I was, like, I couldn't see myself doing that 5 years or more down the line.
Yeah.
So it was not a long-term plan for me by any means. And something that really just kind of hit home for me, and I think has always been present in my life, but really kind of pushed through at that time. So just to kind of give those listeners who might be newer to our story, we grew up in Western New York. So in 2019, we were in New York. So we were a town over from where we grew up. All of our family, all of our friends, literally every creature comfort you could imagine existed in our lives. And I knew that the only way to really create what I knew in my mind was possible for my life was to completely get outside of every single one of those comfort zones.
Oh, and we did.
Sure did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was all your idea. I mean,
It was.
I mean,
The moving.
the moving. Yeah. The moving was, you came up with that. And I'm glad you did. And that was, like I had mentioned earlier, the, like, hitting that cap for myself in that job or career or however you want to word it. That was it for me. Like when you said, hey, what do you think about moving to Colorado? I said, all right, let's do it. And I think the next day I started searching for jobs.
Yeah, it was kind of like a no questions asked.
Yeah.
Like, which is so funny because, like, neither of us had ever been there before.
Right?
So it's just like, yeah, like, let's do it. Like, we were both in, I would say seasons of life where we were really ready to make a change. And so, an exciting adventure ahead just seemed like the next logical step. But what I just remembered was, for you, I think on some subconscious level, like, you had already been wanting to make a change because you actually started looking into going back to school.
I did. Yeah.
Prior to us deciding that we were going to move out of New York.
Yeah, I thought that going back to school, getting further education in a completely different field.
Yeah, because you were going to get into, like, what, tech or computer, like
IT.
something. Yeah, IT.
Yeah, and I thought that was what I wanted to do, and I was exploring my options. I was looking into the certifications and which online colleges had whatever I wanted and how to use the GI Bill towards that. And I was, I don't know, 80% in.
Yeah, I feel like you were like, that was the path forward for you. And I don't honestly remember what changed your mind, because I feel like your mind was changed before I will say suggested we consider moving.
Right. Honestly, I can't remember either. I was, what is it, 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you. I think that it had come into my mind of, like, I want to make this change. Because doing what I was doing, the only way out was basically go back into the construction field, because that's what my previous experience was. And again, I would hit that ceiling. I'd only get so far at what any of the companies in the area. So unless I was there for like 25 years, and then I'd maybe get higher. But I didn't want to do that. So I figured, well, hey, I'm interested in this. Let me pursue this. And then I don't know what happened, but I think that was kind of just put out of my head. And then you had suggested, or you put the idea out there of moving. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So, and I guess that's really how that happened. And it was such a quick turnaround.
Right. So fast forward to later in that same year, so still 2019, we move from New York to Colorado, and, thinking that the grass truly was going to be greener, but I think we can both agree that the grass was not greener in a high elevation desert climate. It was actually quite brown.
Oh, very, very brown. Very brown.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes, exactly.
But aside from the fact that, that was obviously not the greatest time to move to a new state,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of thinking of what unfolded the next year. But we, what, maybe within a couple of years, really just found ourselves going through the motions again.
Yeah, it was just go to work, come home, have your evening, do the same thing every day. You get to Friday afternoon, you're really exhausted from the entire week, and then you have your weekend to kind of do
Yeah,
whatever you need to do
you
around the
cram in
house.
your errands, your house projects. If you're lucky, you carve out some time to see people, but
Yeah,
really just the same story, different state.
right, exactly.
And I think for us, like the disconnect really showed up once we had actually kind of settled down in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first moved there, we moved to a town that I'm assuming we picked that based on where your office was so that you didn't have a crazy long commute.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how that worked.
Yeah. But we quickly realized that apartment living was not for us after having owned a home for
Silly
6 years.
gooses.
So we started the house hunt and decided to build a home about 30 minutes south of where that had been.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, I do wish that we had done a little more research on the surrounding towns. I think for us, it was just, again, with the whole apartment to house thing, it was like, wow, the grass will be greener in a house than it will be in an apartment. And we just kind of leapt without really doing.
Without looking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we leapt without looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reality. But we landed in, I would say, a great community, but like let's just say I would say that area was suburbia USA.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
Absolutely.
just everything you would think of when you might hear that phrase. It was very family with kids focused, which we found really hard to then connect with people as a couple who chose early on in our marriage to not have children. And it was also just very like keeping up with the Joneses. I
Oh
have
man.
never in my life witnessed that like live in person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like cringy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad
It was such a like, it felt so like superficial and materialistic
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's for those of you who may not know us, like that is the farthest thing from our vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was really hard to plant roots, I would say.
Oh, I mean that's absolutely correct. It was super difficult to plant roots when you don't feel connected to like your neighborhood, your community, your town, anything like that. That really hits the nail on the head.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sums it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, I mean, for me, that really quickly led to just feeling overall very unfulfilled. And, it's so interesting because we know quite a few people who have moved to Colorado from various areas of the US. And most of them get to that point where what they thought was going to be their forever, or at
Mm-hmm.
least their long term, no longer is. And they reflect back on that time and they're like, yeah, I kind of feel like I went into Colorado wearing rose colored glasses. And I can say I definitely did.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, absolutely. I think we definitely didn't do as much research as we could have, especially going to like deciding to move to a place that we had never been, except for the one single trip that we took before we actually moved out there.
Right. Well, it's so funny. I remember, like, I don't think we actually went. So the town we lived in was, I mean, it was a very like rapidly growing town, but they had the cutest downtown area that made you feel like you were in a small town,
Mm-hmm.
even though you weren't.
Yeah.
And I think the first time we actually visited there was or like went down there was when we had met with like the folks in the office for the builder,
Mm-hmm.
and like they had to do some work on their ends before we finalized everything.
Right.
So like we went out to lunch and we're like, "Oh, this is amazing." But like that was the first
I
time
know.
we really explored the area. Like, come on.
Yeah, it was.
At least we visited Colorado as a whole before we decided to just like uproot our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Once, but
Once,
whatever.
yeah, a long weekend.
Yeah. And this isn't to say that like there wasn't so much value in those years. I mean, you know, a huge realization for me is like we definitely like we built a great life. It's not like we built a bad life by any means.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we leapt sometimes with while looking, sometimes without looking, and I think there's beauty and there's growth and transformation in that. But it was the fact that we had built a life that really just wasn't aligned with what we valued most. And I don't think that that's something we realized at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that, has come with age and over the years of reflecting on that time. But those years, I have so much gratitude for those years and the experiences that we went through, because they have 100% led us to where we are right now.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's like you had said about reflecting back on it. I mean, I think that's for me. That was the best part of it. Like looking back on it and being like, wow, we did that. Like that's pretty cool that we just up and moved and without knowing anyone or without, like you said earlier, looking without leaping or leaping without looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
One of the two.
One of the two. Yeah, I mean, reflecting back on it, it's just so cool to me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we bet on ourselves.
Yeah.
And we knew that if it wasn't what we hoped it would be, wasn't what we thought it would be, we would just go back to the drawing board and figure out our next play.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really cool.
Right.
I mean, speaking of gratitude, like we're sitting here, we're coming up on our 2-year RV anniversary. Like, can you even? Because I can't.
Right. It's I think you had a moment last night.
I did.
You're like, holy shit, we live here. We live in an RV. Like, it caught me off guard because I'm the one who normally says that, and I looked at you. I'm like, wow, that's like not a first time, but I haven't heard you say that in
a while.
Quite a while.
Yeah, I feel like I had those thoughts often at the start of our journey, but I don't know what it was about last night. I was literally sitting on the couch. You had gotten up to do something. I think you had gone like down the hallway.
Just to close windows.
Yeah,
that's all
and
I
it
did.
was just like I was looking around, and maybe it was just from my vantage point in the RV, and it was just like it was just kind of like, oh, what? Like we live in an RV, and then I was like giggling.
I know.
I was like, how is this real life? Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, and honestly, I've never felt more at home than I do right now.
Which is so wild because we move every month, 2 months.
Sometimes a little longer.
Sometimes a little longer. We try not to go too long.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, new area, new state, every month or 2 months, and it's more home-like in this than it ever was in Colorado, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, the saying goes, home is wherever we are, or something like that.
Something like that. It's close enough. Close enough. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, that's exactly how I feel, we want to give you something to actually do with that without feeling like you need to go and change your whole life overnight.
We don't just want to deliver a great conversation. We want to leave you with tangible takeaways that you can implement into your life now. I think one of the most important things anyone who can relate to hearing our story can start with is you have to name the misalignment in your life.
Absolutely.
I think it's very easy to default to the question of what's wrong with me. But instead of asking yourself that, ask yourself, what about my life feels out of alignment right now? And it's so important that you be super honest with yourself. Is it your schedule, how you're spending your time, the work you're doing, or the environment you're in? Because a lot of the time, it's not your whole life, it's specific pieces that simply don't fit anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also super important to stop dismissing that feeling. I think a lot of people brush that feeling off really quickly. They think, I should just be grateful. Other people have it way worse than I do. And while that can be true, it doesn't make your experience any less valid. That feeling is usually trying to tell you something, and ignoring it is what keeps people stuck for years.
Can I just pause before I get in the last one? I would have killed to have had somebody in my ear telling me these things because I did stay stuck for years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always, stuck in a career or stuck in a certain season of life, but like there's like so many different like moments in time where I can see it now that like I was stuck. I just had to say that.
Okay.
The last thing we'll say here, though, is you don't need to have a plan right now. You don't need to know what the next step is, and you don't need to have it all figured out. For us, clarity didn't come from sitting and thinking about it. It came from being honest with ourselves about what wasn't working and being willing to explore something different.
The biggest thing we want you to take from this episode is this. If you've been feeling that disconnect, like your life looks right but doesn't feel right, that doesn't mean you've failed. It probably means you're starting to see things more clearly.
If this episode resonated with you, a couple quick things you can do that really help us out. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. If you haven't yet, we'd really appreciate you leaving a review. It helps more people who are feeling this way actually find these conversations.
And if someone came to mind while you were listening, send this episode to them. These are the kinds of conversations most people aren't having out loud. And if you want to stay connected with us outside of the podcast, you can find us over on Instagram and Facebook at The Traveling Burns, where we share more of these conversations, real life moments, and the behind the scenes of what this lifestyle actually looks like.
Thank you for being here. We're Eric and Laura, and this is The Road Less Traveled with The Traveling Burns, where we have honest conversations about challenging the default path and what it really means to live differently. We'll see you in the next episode.